What's up, vinyl community? It's your boy Chris, coming at you live as always from the man cave. For those of you who are curious, there are a few. The beer I am drinking is called Lieutenant Dank, and it's from Wicked Weed Brewing in Asheville, North Carolina. Cheers, you guys. I wanted to take some time real quick. I kind of feel like the last few weeks, as I was going through some of my old videos, I kind of feel like my channel has gotten kind of dragged down by a bunch of contest entry videos and my own contest, and I kind of feel like I got steered away towards what I originally tried to do with the channel. So I would like to get back to that. So starting now, I would like to talk to you guys about something personal. When I was a kid, I have a 34-year history of talking too damn much. Real quick, which is fine by me, by the way. God gave me a voice, I intend to use it. When I was a kid, I used to talk my grandmother, God rest her soul, used to talk her ears off. And of course, she never minded. She played right along. And but the joke in the family forever, for as you know, to the day she passed, was for any new child that came into the family that talked a lot, she called them Little Christopher. Yes, Little Christopher, what? So it was the joke for, as you know, until the day she passed, and I'll always love that. And my daughter actually, motor mouth, talks all the time, and I think that if my grandmother were still with us, she would definitely be called Little Christopher. There's no doubt about it. But anyway, I digress. When I was a kid, I used to love both music and talking, of course. So one thing that I always was intrigued by were a couple of things. Number one, commentators, sports commentators, the guys who did the play-by-play, the guys who did the color commentary, because I always loved sports as well. And so that was always awesome. I always loved those guys. I always studied those guys. I always paid attention to what they were saying. And two, DJs, the disc jockeys, the guys who not just, you know, passed you from one song to the next, but the guys who had stories, the guys that made you laugh, those guys. I always loved those guys. And I always studied what they were talking about and always paid attention. I hated commercials on the radio. Back before you had, you know, commercialless radio, back before you had podcasts and iTunes and, you know, your Apple Store, and back before you had Sirius XM radio, which I love Sirius XM radio. And the reason I love Sirius XM radio is because no commercials. But back then there was no other way, so I just accepted the commercials as a necessary evil and just counted down the time until either A, the DJ came back, or B, the next song came on. But when I was a kid, I must have been 7 or 8 years old. Let's call it 7 or 8 years old. I had requested a karaoke machine for Christmas. Stand probably stood up that tall. It had a CD player and a cassette deck, and it had a microphone plugged in on the side. And it had a bunch of karaoke discs and everything on it and everything, but I never even like programmed it because I didn't care about that. That's not what I wanted it for. What I wanted it for was to do my own radio show. True story. So what I would do was I'd line up a bunch of CDs that I just felt like listening to anyway, because I've always been cool with just sitting around listening to music. That's always been fine by me. As I've gotten older, I like to tackle projects as I listen to music, but there's always music. Always. Back then, I was cool just to sit around and listen to it or play video games. Like during the song, I'd go back and play my video game, and I knew the song was getting ready to end, so I'd jump back up and put my DJ persona back on. And my DJ persona, you know, I would just, you know, as I got older, actually, the "What's up, vinyl community? This is your boy Chris" used to be, you know, like, "What's up, everybody? It's your boy Chris." And I've got dozens. As I got older, you know, when I first started out, you know, this little squeaky voice me, you know, would say my name, but I didn't have that tagline or anything yet. But this that I use now for every video, I've been working on since I was like 11 or 12. Except for then it wasn't vinyl community. It was, you know, "What's up, everybody?" or "What's up, y'all? It's your boy Chris." But now, obviously, to the vinyl community thing. But but I've been working on that for 20 years, guys, 20 plus years. And so I would do a little intro into each one. I would talk about who produced the song, the guest artist or whatever. And I'd be like, the guest artist is really blowing up right now, like especially if it was a rap song or whatever. And I would just drop, what they would have been on and everything. And it's just, I don't have a cassette deck anymore. I don't have the means to listen to those tapes. But I want to go back and get a cassette deck just so I can throw on those tapes and study them. They're in a box in my parents' house. So I have to go back and get them. But that shouldn't be a problem. They live really close. But I'd love to study the evolution of little 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old DJ Chris to your boy Chris here, Tunes from the Man Cave. But that was a dream. I wanted to grow up and I wanted to be a DJ. I wanted to play the music I wanted to play. I didn't want to play what the radio wanted to play. The producers wanted me to play. I wanted to play what I wanted to play, no matter what genre. If you go back and you listen to these tapes, there's hip hop, there's grunge, there's classic rock, there's country, there's everything. I've always had really eclectic taste. Back then, I didn't even know what jazz was. It's hard to believe, right? But I didn't know what jazz was. But that's what I wanted. That was a dream. It's a big time dream of mine. And I thought for years that dream had never been realized. But I guess now, getting to sit down and talk to you guys and do my videos whenever I want, talk about whatever music I want. Okay, I'm not playing it because I'm scared YouTube's going to copyright my damn video. It's happened to me 3 times before. I'm not trying to have it happen again, so that's why you don't get any needle drops or anything from me. Like, you see a lot of the needle drop videos, and I always look at those. Every time I see those needle drop videos, I go, man, that motherfucker is brave. He's going to have to go back and reshoot that whole video, is what I think, because they busted me 3 times for copyright. But anyway, I digress once again. And so it didn't just stop there for me with my own radio show. And when I say radio show, guys, I mean I did that all day. And if I filled up one side of the cassette and the cassette ended before the song ended, I'd get pissed. I'd stop and I'd be like, okay, what could I not have talked about that would have knocked off that? Okay, like they probably played another 30 seconds. So I would go off and redo the whole show again. Because I was practicing, even at that young of an age, restricting and fitting into time restraints. I was practicing it even then because I was like, this is what I'm going to be. I'm going to do this. And so, like, look, I've got to fit into a time frame. So, bam, let me go back. Let me delete that little section. Like, I didn't need to talk about that. Let me knock that out. Yeah, I did that. And then I'd go back and play the tape, and I criticize myself, critique myself. When I was like 8 or 9, I wasn't taking notes or anything. I was 11 or 12. I was taking notes. I have notebooks somewhere where I was critiquing myself about, hey, what can I do better? Yada, yada, yada. And then not just that, it didn't stop there. I practiced my talking when me and my uncle or me and my brother or me and my cousin would play video games. Like if we would play, way back when, like King Griffey Jr.'s, MLB. Or, when we would play NBA Jam, or when we would play NBA Live way back in the day before 2K took over. A lot of you kids, if you're 22 or 23 watching this, you have no idea what NBA Live is, probably. It's all about 2K now. But anyway, and so I would do that, and they would ask me to. Like if we started a game and I didn't feel like doing it, they would ask me to. Be like, hey man, you're not going to call the game? They enjoyed it. I don't know. I've always had a way of talking. I've always had a way of talking to people, about people, yada, yada, yada. It's just been a lifelong thing. But anyway, unfortunately, that didn't happen. I didn't finish college. No reason to go into why. It's personal. But some of you watching this know why. But and so it didn't happen. I didn't get a job on the radio as a disc jockey. I didn't get a job as a color commentator for ESPN or Fox or any of these stations. That didn't happen. I ended up working in a warehouse, and I've been there half my life in warehouses. And for years and years and years, I'm so bummed about that. So bummed. Because I thought, I'm not doing anything with my life. I'm not doing what I want to do with my life. I'm not happy with what I'm doing. Anyway, I spent some time earlier in my 20s really miserable about it. But I got over it, especially the day my daughter was born. It's like my life's got new purpose. I can bust my ass, I can save a lot of money, and I can make sure she can go to college. So if she wants to be a damn disc jockey, she can be. Or if she wants to be an engineer, she can be. So my life has new purpose, and I clock in every day understanding, like, look, this is about her, not about me. One of the main things about being a parent that I tell people is, you know, new parents, when they ask for advice, it's like, any selfish streak you got, throw that shit in the trash. It's over with. Anything you've got selfish about you, dump it in the trash. Not about you anymore. But anyway, so for some of you who might be curious as to what I used to play on my radio shows, one of these days I'm going to get a cassette deck and I'm going to do a video where I'll play a couple of takes for you guys just so we can have a laugh about it. Some of them are really bad at the beginning and some of them got good. But anyway, when I was like 8 or 9, I loved Pearl Jam and Nirvana. I loved them both. And I can just remember endlessly playing songs from 10. I had the CD, I'd dub it on my cassette, like Once, Even Flow, Alive, Black, Jeremy. I'd pick different songs for like every radio show. And then there were several times, like several radio shows in a row, I would like throw Even Flow on. I always loved Even Flow, and I always loved Alive, especially. So I used to play the ever-living piss out of this one, and I had it on so many. There's got to be dozens of tapes that I've got something from 10 on there. Got to be. Guys, I just grabbed a bunch of albums at random, by the way. Plenty more besides these, obviously. But I figured this would give you guys to hear me talk about something besides jazz. But this has always been my favorite Nirvana album. I love this, I love Nevermind, I love Bleach, I love In Utero, I love them all. Really do. But I've always loved the stripped down acoustic vibe of Unplugged. And The Man Who Sold the World and Where Did You Sleep Last Night, even when I was 7 and 8 years old, were my favorites on this album. You would think that, the more mature ear would prefer those songs. And it wasn't until I always thought The Man Who Sold the World, I always thought that was a Nirvana song. It wasn't until years later when I started getting into, when my ears started branching out a little bit and I got into David Bowie, that I realized that's a David Bowie song. And I love David Bowie's version. I've always preferred Nirvana's because that's the one I fell in love with first. And it's not very often I prefer a cover. And of course, in my opinion, it's hard to love Pearl Jam and not love Temple of the Dog. Say Hello to Heaven, especially. I used to throw that on all the time. Say Hello to Heaven and Hunger Strike, of course. And, several others on the album. But to this day, this is one of my favorite albums of the 90s. Probably top 3. And I would say probably top 3 with this and the other two I just showed you. So I played it all the time. It's on dozens of those little cassette tapes. And then as I was about 8 or 9, 10, I started getting into hip-hop. Had an older cousin of mine that was all he listened to. And so he kind of started steering me in that direction. My parents hated it. But The Chronic. I can remember, I think The Chronic is the first hip-hop album I can remember getting into. The Chronic and Doggy Style. I got into them hard. I knew every word and nothing but a G thing when I was 8. Guaranteed. And let's just say when my parents were around, I did not censor myself. Obviously not. Clean it up real good when the folks are around. But, to my parents' credit, my parents would never not buy a CD for me with a parental advisory sticker. If I had earned the money, and as long as they never heard the words, and as long as the words weren't repeated at school for me to get in trouble, for them to get called to the school, they never minded buying them for me, and they never restricted me from rated R movies. They didn't, because the way my parents saw it was, you're either going to hear it out in the world or you're going to hear it under our roof, and we would prefer you hear it under our roof. So those were the rules. Don't let us hear it, and don't let you get in trouble at school for it. because they didn't just buy stuff for us randomly. We had to earn the money. So that was one of the reasons. Was like, well, you earned the money. So just, yes, we'll do it and don't repeat it. So we would just wait till they weren't around. It's a wonder we never got caught. So, also, I'm going to say I was probably 10 or 11. Probably 10 or 11, maybe a little younger for the Counting Crows. I really loved these. For the Counting Crows, I always loved. Well, of course, Mr. Jones was the big hit, and I always loved Rain King. Raining in Baltimore, I love Raining in Baltimore. But I always, around here, I always loved this one. And I played the ever-living piss out of it, and it's on dozens of my tapes. Of course, you guys have already heard me talk about, my affinity for my Charleston, South Carolina homeboy Darius Rucker, and my South Carolina homeboys, the rest of the Hootie and Blowfish band. I love this album. Over the years, it become popular to start shitting on Hootie and the Blowfish, but I think this sold like 15 million copies. So a lot of you guys are liars. Statistically, the odds are not in your favor. A lot of you guys have it and are lying about it. Wallflowers. Bringing down the house. Bringing down the house. What am I talking about? Bringing down the horse. As soon as I said that, I knew it was wrong. Bringing down the horse. I used to listen to that forever. 6th Avenue Heartache was always my favorite song on this one. Of course, there's One Headlight is the popular one, is the most popular one. But 6th Avenue Heartache was always my favorite, and those two songs, specifically, especially, are on dozens of my little DJ Chris mixtapes. And hip-hop, especially 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, it didn't go away. All Eyes on Me by Tupac. I love damn near every one on these. And my favorite thing to do off of All Eyes on Me by Tupac was to go grab the songs that weren't the hits and put those on. Not How Do You Want It, not Two of America's Most Wanted, but my favorite thing to do was get Life Goes On, or, Picture Me Rolling, or, Can't See Me. Those were my favorite ones to grab. And I would mention, this is an unheard, underappreciated song off of a Tupac's massive hit double album and everything like that. I would really narrate it hard. Then, of course, Bad Boy came in, Bad Boy took over. Puff Daddy and the Family, No Way Out. Mace, Harlem World. I would play every song off of No Way Out and damn near every song off of Harlem World by Mace. I always loved Mace. I always thought he was so cool. But so many hits on both of these. So I would play these all the time. And something that, this one never went away even for a second. It's Matchbox 20's Yourself or Someone Like You. This album's got so many hits on it. So many hits. I saw Matchbox 20 in concert probably about 10 or 11 years ago. They were still great. I loved them. So I've always been a Matchbox 20 fan. But that's just to give you guys an idea of some of the music that I would play on my DJ Chris mixtapes or DJ Chris radio shows that I used to host. Basically, that went on from about, let's call it 7 or 8 to 14. And the reason I say 14 is I went to work when I was 14. I went to work at 14, 30 hours a week. I played 3 sports. So that's sports, that's practice and games all year. If you play 3 sports, that's practice and games year round. You never stop. And I went to school. So there was no more time for my DJ Chris mixtapes. So I always, I grew up at 14. I had a 13-year childhood, I tell people. So there's that, and I don't regret it even for a minute. It taught me the value of hard work. It taught me, the importance of $1. It taught me how to save money, which I never have gotten that great at, ever. But anyway, I figured you guys would like to hear about my lifelong story of talking too damn much. I wouldn't change that about myself even for a minute. But that whole story brings me to the closing point. Okay, I didn't finish college. So I never did get to be DJ Chris. I never did get to host my own radio show. I never did get to do any of that. And I never will get to. And that's fine. I'll never make a living doing it. But then this wonderful YouTube thing come on. I joined YouTube, guys, and I started my channel on a dare. Shout out. Cheers to my boy Dylan at Noble Records. He started his, and he's just like really pushing me and a couple other guys. Oh, come on, guys, come on. We'll all do our videos. It'll be fun, And, I did a video thinking, okay, nothing's really going to come of this. And now I always thinking about the next video. So I don't get to do this for a living. I don't get to talk about music for a living. I don't get to play whatever music I want and get paid for it. But in my free time, in my very small amount of free time, I do get to come on here and spend 20, 30, however many minutes. It's been more, obviously, you guys know, talking to you amazing people about a huge passion of mine, and that's music, and that's vinyl records. And I don't get a check for it, but I love it, and I'm passionate about it, and it's pretty damn cool. And I love all you guys. I love you all. I've met some of the kindest people I've ever met in my life through the vinyl community, and it's really took off since I joined YouTube. So to all of you guys, to every single one of my subscribers, and to everyone who will see this video who doesn't subscribe, to anybody who watches this video and thinks, man, I'm tired of listening to this guy talk, I don't care. You're all awesome. And I love you all. Cheers from the man cave. Until the next time, until the next video, keep dropping that needle, you guys.